Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dillon, I'm your host, and guys, today we're going to talk about systems. Now, I know this is not the most sexy topic that somebody can talk about, but it is one of the most important pieces of your business. You need systems to run everything that you do from top to bottom. You need someone to make sure that the system and process is followed, and you need someone to design that same system. This is something that I've kind of found here lately that I am pretty good at. It's really the biggest skill that I have is in creating these systems and doing a lot of it from scratch or taking existing tools and building on top of that. I mean, that's ultimately what software is a system that makes it really simple for people to use. With this, there's really two kind of roles that we need to identify here off the bat. The first one is the visionary, and the next one is the integrator. So when you think of a visionary, you might think Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, right? Somebody that paints the vision, the portrait of the company, Jeff Bezos, on where they're going and what they're going to achieve, right? Going to Mars, that is a big vision. The everything store with Amazon, and having that visionary leader, that person that understands where the market is heading, where the industry is heading, what things people need and want, like that is very important in a company. Oftentimes though, that visionary, and before I get into kind of some of the things with a visionary, it's important to note that not everybody has to be a visionary, right? We idolize guys like Steve Jobs, but there were a lot of people behind the scenes that did a lot of things that Steve really couldn't do. And we don't want to take this idolization of a person to such an extreme that we really forget everything else that goes into a company, that makes the company great, that makes the company visionary and really work and deliver a product that people want. So while you need the visionary leader, they are important, they are crucial, and it is the leadership of your company, where we're heading, where we're going, what we're going to do. You also need an integrator, somebody that can really put all the systems together, make sure the ship runs the way that it's supposed to, and everybody is kind of rowing in the same direction. The CEOs and visionary person, their job is to point the ship, and then it's really the COO's job to make sure the ship is going in the right direction, everybody's rowing together, everything works. And that's really the kind of the, I guess, dichotomy or the role of each of these people is you need a visionary leader, but you also need an integrator, somebody to come up behind and to clean up the kind of messes. Because visionaries, they're messy. They're not always put together. They don't always have systems and processes and kind of guardrails around them to make sure that they're going in the right direction. So a visionary can carry a company, and they can do, 1, 3, 5, maybe $10 million in revenue, but that's about it. After that, there's no system, there's no process, there's nothing behind it to allow that company to scale. So when you start to really put systems and processes and things around these visionary people, and it could be a role within your company, right? The visionary might change over time as people, age out, retire, want to do different things. You can change out maybe that visionary to take the company in a different direction, but the systems and processes around those things more than likely are going to stay the same. They're going to adjust with time and technology adjustments, but by and large, it's going to be, we take the visionaries' ideas and thoughts, refine them into process, and then put them into practice within the company. And so when we really talk about systems, it's to allow visionary people, to allow creatives and people that are just forward thinking. And maybe that's a better way to phrase this, is those that are forward thinking, those are that able to see where things are going and where things are headed, is to take their ideas, their thoughts, their way of looking at things, distill it down into systems and processes for every person on the team to then allow them to individually execute on the task at hand. If you think about this like an assembly line, sort of, like Henry Ford did, right, is to break this whole process of putting a car together, put it into its individual component parts, then assign individual component part to a specific person to then become very great at, right? This person does this specific thing, they're great at it, and you allow them to run with it. And then you basically rinse and repeat this same process moving forward. It allows you to become very effective, very efficient, and those people become great at the thing that they do, which allows you to become better at the overall process, right? If you have somebody that, like, let's say you're a general contractor and you're estimating. Well, you have people that are dedicated to estimating. They need to be great at estimating. And the more that you're estimating and doing that specific task, and you get feedback on it, you become better at doing the thing. And the same thing goes for basically any other role within your company, right? To manage projects, to deal with submittals, to deal with RFIs, to deal with change orders, to deal with owner requests, to deal with sales, business development, right? Like each role has a specific piece, and we've done pretty well as a construction as an industry to break down these roles, right? Superintendents are in charge of the overall project and managing the site. Foremans lead the specific teams. The account executive deals with the clients. The project engineer deals with submittals and RFIs, and they probably do a lot more on that, depending on the company. But the thing really comes down to, do you have specific roles, responsibilities for every person within your company? And are they clearly defined? Because the other thing that you might have is you might have people that are very dialed in and very good at specific things, but their roles aren't clearly defined. So then they get to where maybe they're doing a couple different things. Maybe they're doing something that somebody else might be or should be doing. So we want to make sure that everyone knows what everyone else's role and responsibility is. Then, when we're able to do that, we're able to make sure that we're taking care of our job, other people are taking care of theirs, and there is a separation of power, but separation of responsibility. That that this person is in charge of that thing, and they don't think that you're doing it, and you don't think that they're doing it, so it gets missed and falls through the cracks. Ultimately, that's the thing that we want to avoid here, is things falling through the cracks, things not being noticed or identified from those around us. So the more that we're able to clearly define every person's role, the better off that we're going to be. Far too often, things fester. People get frustrated and annoyed at maybe what somebody's doing without addressing it, without having the meeting with everybody involved, every stakeholder within your company. So this could be calling a meeting with your top superintendent, your top project manager, your COO, your CEO, your president, your founder, your chairman of the board, whatever roles you need to do, right? Your discipline leaders within your firm, whoever you need to pull to that table, to then have the conversation to say, look, we need to talk this through. We need to clearly define who's doing what. And you just walk through the process of a project, from start to finish. Who is responsible for what? And make it clear. Like, there's nothing that should be off limits in this conversation. Everyone should have a very clear, definite piece at the end of it, right? They should know what they're going to do. And then through this, you take good meeting minutes, which we are really known for in the construction industry, but to take good meeting minutes, take good notes, send those out, let everyone know that they're clearly defined for each role. And then, go through some iterations probably on that. From there, you send it out to the rest of the firm and everybody's on board. This is the way it is. And then you hold everybody accountable for it. It creates a very simple, easy process, a very simple, easy way to hold people accountable, and it creates a system, right? this person's responsible for that. And then you can break down their individual role into, in their responsibilities, into processes, checklists, everything else that goes into it. And granted, this is a ton of work, but the clearer you can be on this, and once you define it, frankly, it's good for a very long time, right? These things don't change overnight. These systems and processes can be in place for years, which makes them super, super valuable. So by putting in systems, processes, planning, and bring people in to probably help look at this, right? Like this is something that you can bring people in to take a second look at what it is that you do, right? Making sure that you're following your processes or even putting them in place, creating them for you. Because most people can't look up. They can't rise above the day-to-day, right? You're so inundated by this person calling you, that email, this thing that came up, this problem, this proposal, this thing you need to get out the door, right? We're fighting fires constantly. All day and every day is what we're ending up doing. We're fighting fires. We can't see ahead of us. We're just trying to swim. And so having an outside party, having a second, third set of eyes on what it is that you're doing ultimately is beneficial. Now, for a long time, I didn't think that this was always necessary, right, to bring in an outside consultant. I think, hey, you could do this yourself. And really what I've come to find is, man, you probably need a set of outside eyes, for my own business, for other things that I've been involved in, for consulting and helping people with systems and processes. I see it, that people are just stuck in the day-to-day and they don't have the breathing room to rise above what it is they're doing to allow them to really see the bigger picture. You probably know that something's wrong, and most people do. Like, they know that something's not right. There's one or two things that just aren't working the way that it should. And so, but they don't have the time to look at it. And that's really what a lot of this comes down to, is having the time to look at it, address it, put a system and process in place, implement it, and then allow your team to execute on it. It's a lot of thinking time. It's a lot of thought that goes into that. It's not so much a straightforward problem solution. It's something that does take time, does take effort, does take energy to work through and to solve. So at the end of the day, what I'm getting at is that systems scale, right? Like that. All right. Sorry about that. Dogs were excited about systems scaling, right? System scale, fancy fails. At the end of the day, that's all you need to know, right? A simple solution, something that creates a easy to follow step-by-step process, is scalable. At the end of the day, that's all you need to know, is systems will scale your business. They will scale your company. They will allow you to bring in people fresh off the street into your organization and allow them to succeed, right? I went to Cedar Point last week, the big amusement roller coaster theme park there in Sandusky, Ohio, on Lake Erie, and it was pretty much run by a bunch of teenagers. This entire amusement park was led by teenagers. And when you think about that, right, the millions of dollars, the safety features, the everything that goes into an amusement park, right, roller coasters and people going 60 miles an hour on two little tracks of steel and a wheel that you hope stays on, run by teenagers. McDonald's, run by teenagers. Any fast food joint, run by teenagers. Like, how incredible is that these massive businesses are basically run by teenagers? It's because their systems and processes are so dialed in, they're so well thought through, that you can take somebody with very little experience. This has nothing to do with IQ. This has, can you follow this checklist, because it is so well thought through that it becomes really hard to screw up. And so by having these pure systems and processes in your company, it allows you to scale easily, scale consistently, and you know that for every person you add, you can do X on the output, right? Input, output. And that is how you scale. That is how you grow. That is how you become better. Simple inputs, simple outputs. all through making a simple list, following it, improving upon it when the time is necessary, and going from there. But you have to have the time to implement these systems, implement these processes, and bringing in somebody from the outside is probably a good idea for most people to understand what it takes to build these systems and processes, and somebody who's dedicated to helping you do that for your business while you're focused on the day-to-day, the ins and outs, the problems, the fires, the next thing that you're focused on. So looking up, being able to implement, and looking for the right people to help you implement these types of solutions is something that ultimately will help you scale and do it without taking up too much of your own time. So guys, at the end of the day here, system scale, fancy fails. That's all you got to remember. System scale, fancy fails. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. Share this episode if you got something out of it, and pass this along to those of you that are looking to implement systems within your business. So guys, until next time, that's this episode of the Construction Corner podcast.